Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the How to Survive podcast. My name is Chris and joining me as ever is my good friend Joe.
Hello, thank you very much for listening. The end.
And you might be asking yourself,
what came we to this podcast to record?
And the answer is an episode about The Witch, the Robert Eggers film, which has only recently been released, at least in the UK.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm ever going to do this during the podcast.
Okay.
And I think this is a watershed moment for the podcast.
Okay. What?
If you've got any children listening, so let's say you listen to this in the car with your family or anything like that, maybe don't this episode. Because even though, you know, every episode we talk about various gory things, this takes it a little bit further and very soon into the podcast as well. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know actually, because we've talked about sexual violence a lot in the past, but we haven't, I suppose, gone into as much detail as we're going to have to.
Well, I've got my plot summary written here.
Okay.
And in the second paragraph there is a phrase or a section that you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you haven't seen The Witch, as ever, we're just going to dive straight into the plot. We're going to talk about the whole thing. So if you haven't seen it, go out and see it in the cinema.
Definitely worth it. Yeah.
Enjoy it if enjoy is a word that you can use about this film. And then listen to this podcast. So yeah, let's dive straight into the plot.
Yeah. Forewarned: get kids out the room or the car.
Yeah.
But pull over first.
It's New England in the 1600s, and William and his family are excommunicated from their Puritan Christian homestead for chastising other members and for the crime of prideful conceit.
Describe prideful conceit.
I don't know what prideful conceit is.
The setup suggests that the Puritans, who left England because they basically thought England was like not religious enough.
Yeah, it's sinful.
Yeah. Are accusing this family of being too
religious.
Religiously conservative.
Yeah. So they leave their community and they build a farm on a patch of land overlooked by a huge forest. A few months later, the newborn baby Samuel is kidnapped and murdered by a witch who grinds his remains into a paste and smothers herself in it, creating a flying ointment which enables her to fly.
Yes.
Following the disappearance of Samuel, the crops at the farm fail and the family find themselves unable to hunt food. William appears incapable of providing for his family, secretly selling his wife's family heirloom, a silver cup, for food. He takes Caleb hunting in the wood, and Caleb later lies to his mother, claiming they were looking for an apple tree he saw. A misbehaving goat the family owns, called Black Philip, causes problems, and the twin children of the family claim he can speak to them. Tensions rise between the family members as Catherine blames Thomasin. Catherine's the mother and Thomasin is the sort of protagonist of the film, the main daughter. So Catherine blames Thomasin for the disappearance of both of Samuel and of her cup. Meanwhile, Thomasin teases her younger sister, claiming to be a witch. Caleb and Thomasin one morning venture out alone into the wood to hunt and become separated. Thomasin finds her way back home, but Caleb is lost in the wood, finding the family dog mauled to death before encountering a hut. From inside, a beautiful woman emerges, seducing Caleb into a kiss, at which point she clamps a witch-like hand around his head. That night, Caleb returns, naked and exhausted, to the family home. He becomes gravely ill, and the family, believing him bewitched, form a prayer circle around him. Caleb chokes on an apple which appears in his throat.
Yeah, the apple is kind of summoned from within him.
Yeah.
And he coughs it up in a ball of blood.
Yeah.
Nasty.
And then Caleb hallucinates a vision of Christ appearing before him, and then finally dies. The twins and Thomasin accuse each other of witchcraft, leading William to barricade them and Black Philip in a barn. That night, a distraught Catherine dreams Caleb, Samuel, and her silver cup return to her. She breastfeeds Samuel, which we then see in reality is a raven pecking at her breast while she laughs maniacally.
Yeah.
A voice promises to return the things she loves to her if she signs the book.
But she, importantly, doesn't sign the book because she wants to tend to the baby's needs first.
In the barn, the witch appears and drinks the blood of the goats, terrifying the children.
Yeah.
The next morning, William finds the barn destroyed and the twins missing. Suddenly, he is gored repeatedly by Black Philip and dies. Catherine emerges and, blaming Thomasin for the deaths of her family, attacks her daughter, who is forced to kill her in self-defence. That night, Thomasin speaks to Black Phillip, who responds, taking human form, and promises her a delicious life if she signs his book. She does, and walks naked into the woods where she finds witches around a fire who fly into the air. Thomasin begins to levitate too, and seeing this, begins to laugh. And that's how The Witch ends.
Yeah. It's not a pleasant film, is it?
There are certainly unpleasant moments throughout, I would say. So generally speaking, Joe, what did you think of The Witch?
I think it was amazingly authentic. I mean, obviously, I didn't live in the 1630s in New England, so I don't know how authentic it is. But I know the dialogue in the movie, in the script, is based on actual, like, sort of courtroom transcriptions from accusations of witchcraft and various accounts of the times. So, you know, in that sense, it's authentic. And the language is... I mean, if you ever watched Deadwood, you'll know how language can really set the tone for something.
Yeah, and that's set like 200, 300 years later than this film.
From the start, you've got the main characters talking to each other like they live in 1630s in New England. They're saying things like, "Have thy been to thy prayer, mine son?" and "Keep that deviled tongue behind you." You know, all this sort of stuff.
The devil waggles your tongue.
Yeah,
this sort of thing. Yeah.
In that sense, you have to really, really pay attention to it to understand what's going on, but it makes it that much more immersive because you can't help but be drawn into it.
Yeah, it's like transportive in a way, isn't it? Because
it's like Shakespeare.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's exactly and as good,
and
as important culturally. I agree. And it's like a really appropriately nasty film.
Yes,
like aesthetically and spiritually. So like the whole film is just horrible, but it like suits the narrative and the sense of paranoia. Like it captures the time period, I think, really well.
Yeah.
Like everything is really grim and grimy. Like it's just unpleasant, and it just made me think how genuinely awful it must have been to live in that time. Yeah, like imagine a day in their lives, like getting up at dawn.
The best you can hope for is to get up at the sunrise. Yeah, to go and till the field all day.
Yeah, in the hope that, you know, your crops don't fail, because if they do, you're dead.
And there's various scenes of them praying or talking to each other about God, and they say things like, "We're born of sin." You know, it's this very Puritan sort of sense of, we are sinners, and everything we do is a sin, and we can only hope that God will look kindly on us and allow us into heaven if we pray. And William, the patriarch, despite all this turmoil and these bad things happening, he's kind of gets himself and tries to get his family through it by saying, "Don't worry about that. Just turn your attention to God." Yeah.
Like they say at one point, William says to Catherine that they're blessed because only one of their children has died. Like, it's terrible. It just makes me think.
And he says basically they're conceited for having grief in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they shouldn't grieve because it's to
it's in insult to God.
Contest God's plan. And they each variously have like crises of faith at various points. But like
except William, weirdly.
Well, he does though. He says that he is guilty of pride, isn't he? Yeah. Because he at various points
lies to people and
or you know, doesn't return to the community for help.
Yeah. He says, "I don't want to return as a beggar."
Yeah. Like every shot is like a Renaissance painting as well. Like the way every shot is composed, like everything's a very still camera, or it seems to me that they're like a lot of the shots are from a very fixed camera. Yes. Yeah, everything seems very ornately composed, and part of that is the like 1.66 aspect ratio, so it's like 4:3. Yes. Which is obviously old style.
So it's kind of a square rather than a widescreen.
Exactly, yeah. So you get, like, that has its benefits, like in wooded scenes, because you get the height of the trees a bit more. But it just made me, it added to the tension of the film for me, because it makes it that much more claustrophobic.
Yeah, and you're just sort of stuck in that hut with them.
Yeah, and I was just waiting constantly for, like, things to, like, come from off screen. Yeah. And, like, the film never treads into that territory of like having things in the background that, you know, you go and the characters don't see them or anything like that. And then like 90% of the way through the film, at the point that I had given up waiting for things to appear off screen, Black Phillip attacks William from off screen suddenly, and it scared the crap out of me.
I mean, it's the only jump scare in the whole film.
Yeah,
and it works so well.
Exactly, it's like it's basically giving you, because even at that point you're not sure if Black Phillip is even.
Yeah, even after that.
Yeah, exactly.
It could just be a goat
just
running
a goat.
wild. Yeah. Speaking of that, because Black Phillip, I mean, it does turn out that he is a demon.
Yeah, an embodiment of Satan.
Yes.
Or potentially, yeah.
Yeah, we can get into the details of witchcraft and stuff shortly, but I want to talk about the bookends of the film.
Yeah.
Which are essentially the opening, which is Samuel being kidnapped and a witch grinding him into a paste.
Yeah. And
then at the end of the film, Black Phillip saying to Thomason, actually, witches are real, and I want you to be a witch. And she says, okay, good. But those two scenes, if you took them out, you'd still have a very workable film, in my opinion. And it would be more ambiguous, if you know what I mean, and more a sense of like paranoia. Like you said, it is a very paranoid film, and I think that would be as powerful, perhaps more powerful, to leave it just like look at how bad it can get if you were to sort of stuck with people, like 5 people on a ranch for years and years.
It's like The Shining.
Yeah.
Like it's like that isolation horror.
Yeah, exactly.
And I still think, in spite of those scenes which you think, do you feel like it's definite confirmation that these things are like existing and tangible?
I think the way that they're shown repeatedly, and in the middle you've got the witch actually appearing. It could be their hallucinations, it could be they're just thematic. But I don't know, the reason I don't like them as much is because my beliefs about things like the Salem witch trials and stuff, which are obviously contemporary with this, is that is the lowest ebb in like what humanity is capable of, and that is interesting in itself. Like you watch The Crucible or something, like it's the sort of like how powerless you are once you've been accused of being a witch, and how easy it is to slip into that. That's an interesting concept. But to say like actually it was witches, it's kind of like, well, is that as interesting?
Well, I want to talk about this in more detail a bit later, because I think this is crucial when it comes to talking about how to survive.
If the witches are indeed real, as they appear to be, it makes their efforts seem all the more futile. Yeah. So they're praying to God, and God obviously isn't answering, but the devil is. If you know what I mean? So despite trying to live a pious and devout life, it's not going to do you any good at the end of the day. Well, yeah, that might be the case. Well, as ever, we'll get to how to survive towards the tail end of the show. Okay, go ahead. But I've got some thoughts on the things that you've just brought up. Really. Okay, go on. Yeah, but it stays with you, I think, the film, in the way that the very best horror films do. Yes. Like, I was still thinking about it days later. Yeah. Specifically that scene where you see... Obviously, you don't see it happen on camera. No. Samuel being killed, or like the beginning of his being ground up. Yeah, it's implication more. But like, it's you know, it's well. I mean, let's talk about that scene. So, because I think that's probably one of the most unexpected and disturbing things that I've seen in a film, especially opening the movie. Because I've seen the trailer. You've seen the trailer. You know, basically, I thought that getting Samuel back would form like the basis for the film's narrative. Yeah. Or that it would happen later on in the film. Yeah. And it'd be like, look at what the witches are up to. It's like the Act 2 thing that they've got to overcome. Yeah. Right? But instead, he is literally pasted within the first 10 minutes of the film. Like on the screen. Yeah. Without ambiguity. Yeah. And it shows like just enough to communicate what's happening without being gratuitous, but it also leaves enough to the imagination about what's happening and why to be just creepy, terrifying. Yeah. Like it's terrifying both for what you know is happening and what you don't know. Like why it's happening. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because when he actually disappears, that the only way that could happen is through witchcraft, right? Yeah. Because she's playing... If you've seen the trailer, you've seen... I mean, go and watch the trailer if you haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. She's playing peekaboo with the baby. Yeah. This is Thomas and the daughter. She's playing peekaboo with the baby who's laying on the floor in the grass next to the woods. And as she closes her eyes for like 2 seconds, she opens them and the baby's gone. And ahead of her, about 100 yards in the distance, all the trees are moving out of the way, suggesting that he's been... You can hear like twigs snapping underfoot. Something has come and got him. Yeah. Or he's been sucked across by some paranormal force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's pretty well done.
Yeah, it is. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and like the soundtrack throughout that scene that leads up to the shot of her holding something up to the moon, the witch, that is. It's again adds so much to the tension, because it's like unbearable, like build up of like voices and crescendo noise basically, and it's like
it's chaotic.
Yeah, it's like it is basically the same as the chanting that we see at the end of the film.
Yeah, well, that seems a bit more rhythmic. This is more like cacophonous.
Yeah,
it's just meant to make you go like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Well, I had like my head in my hands, which I can't remember the last time a film made me do that. Samuel is obviously the youngest son, but there's also Caleb,
right,
played by Harvey Scrimshaw.
Yeah,
who for the first 2/3 of his role in the film, I thought was annoying. In terms of his performance. Basically.
Yeah, I thought he couldn't really deliver his lines properly, because it is a really heavy script to manage.
Exactly, like there's no shame in like what I presume is like a 10-year-old boy not being able to like master Puritan English.
Yeah, Ralph Ineson, who we've mentioned before, played Chris Finch in The Office.
Yeah,
he does it spectacularly well. Yeah, as does Kate Dickie, who you'll know from Game of Thrones as
Liza
Arryn.
Yeah.
And of course the daughter Thomason, they all handle it spectacularly well. The boy, he felt like he was stumbling a lot.
Yeah.
But then he really brings it back with this scene where he's possessed.
Yeah, it's like completely transformative for his performance. Like it goes from him being like it was never bad enough for you to be dragged out of the film.
No, it's not like Anakin Skywalker.
No, exactly. Yeah. It's not cringeworthy or anything like that. But the scene where he is sick and like writhing around and he's possessed, or having
the implication is that he could be bewitched by something. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, bewitched. That might be one of the best pieces of child acting I've ever seen.
Yeah, particularly when he's having the hallucination that Jesus stands before him.
Yeah.
I mean, I use the word spectacular. And what I mean is it's a real spectacle to behold.
Yeah.
Because that scene is just so intense and like, I don't know. I mean, I can't explain it in any way. Just say go and see it, because it's that good.
It is brilliant. It's one of the best scenes in the film.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like normally in horror films you have a certain like schema built up in your head, like a certain pattern of how you think the film's going to go.
Yeah.
And by this point in the film, the tension had gotten to me so much that it was like I was adrift. Like I had no idea what was coming, what to expect. And the last time that happened was Kill List,
right?
Which is a film that I often talk about, but I also saw that in the cinema, knowing very little about it.
Yeah, sure.
And that similarly has a sort of the film takes a direction which is extremely disturbing and completely unexpected, especially because the first third of the film gives you the implication that it's going to be one film and it turns into something completely different.
Yes.
And Kill List, I think, is an appropriate comparison given the final scene.
Yeah.
So after Black Phillip gets her to sign her name in his book, it says, "I will guide thee hand," or whatever.
Okay, I will guide thy hand.
Thy hand, yeah.
Because you can't write.
Yeah, she walks into the forest and there's the bonfire around which a group of witches are chanting, singing, doing who knows what.
Yeah. Or naked as well.
Yeah, which it is like Kill List, because a similar thing happens in that film.
Yes.
And it's the first time we see a sort of coven of witches in the film.
Suggesting that the one we do see isn't the only one active.
We potentially see more than one.
Okay.
Because there's the one that we see in the intro, who potentially is the one who appears in the barn later.
Yeah, I thought that was the same. Yeah.
The same one. And then there is the beautiful woman who leaves the hut.
Yes.
Who could be
the same one in a different form.
It could be the result of a spell.
Yeah.
Or it could be that is what she actually looks like.
Right.
And I don't know, it's more of a thematic thing maybe, the hand becoming horrible. But anyway, that scene is like, obviously that part of the scene evokes Kill List and things like The Wicker Man, like other occult horrors.
Yeah.
And you can see this film becoming,
revered in the same circle.
Exactly, yeah. I would say. Did you know the Satanic Church the religion Satanism.
Right, Satanism, yeah, sure.
They like this film so much that they've basically taken it as a like prescribed text.
Really?
And they offer tours of the film's setting and all this sort of thing. So
really,
because they see it as being such a realistic
portrayal of, but then that doesn't necessarily hold up, because I'm none the wiser about the tenets of Satanism.
Yeah.
Which I assume is worshipping Satan.
Yeah. I don't know enough about it, but I know that they
seem to know a lot about it. He's subscribed to their newsletter.
Yeah.
You've been on the tour.
Yeah. I run the tour.
Yeah.
But clearly the depiction of Satan and his work in this film is, well researched enough to tally with their view on the world, or how it should be.
Well, interestingly, I don't disbelieve that, but I can take it a bit further and give you a bit more context.
Okay.
I've spoken to a friend of mine who is, I don't know, he's very interested in witches, I guess. He says basically the Compendium Maleficarium, I hope I'm saying that correctly, which is basically a book about witches, says Black Phillip is the source of the magic, the demon Black Phillip, who is also the goat, and all the witch does in the way of spells and rituals and things like that, and particularly the bonfire scene, those are a way to show devotion to Black Phillip in order to earn his magic.
Right.
So when he says I can give you butter and stuff, you have to then do these bizarre things, like get Eye of Toad and Tongue of Newt and whatever, in order to get that power from him.
Okay.
So he's what's called a patron demon. So
right.
I guess he's either Satan or working for Satan, and he gives you black magic if you do certain things to show that you're worthy of earning it.
Right.
So does that help you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, clearly whatever, however that tallies with the depiction of what happens in the film is clearly enough for the Satanic Church to agree with it enough to
make it a recommended reading.
Yeah. And the sort of depiction or non-depiction of Satan, I think, is really well handled, because I think I had this like deep-seated concern that at some point we were going to see the goat talk,
right? Yeah,
and like the
CGI,
mouth, like CGI mouth on it or something like that. But instead, you just hold the same shot of Thomasin and like a figure that you only see, a small part of his costume almost.
Yeah.
Walks behind her and places a gloved hand on her shoulder,
right? And
that's all that you see. And I think that's the perfect way of doing it.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Which I again, that's another place where they could have ended it. Her begging the goat to tell her what's going on, and then it just ends in silence.
But if Thomasin has become a witch,
right?
What are her motivations?
Well, for the taste of butter, okay, apparently, according to Black Phillip, and for a delicious life.
Yeah.
So she's obviously sick of living on the farm,
but is it like she's been driven to this point by the, basically what I'm saying is it's ambiguous whether, because at certain points in the film she is accused of being a witch, and it could be interpreted as that she was all along, potentially.
Well, I don't know, because she goes to Black Phillip and says, tell me what you've told the kids, which suggests that she isn't necessarily in the know if they are. But
if she's so let's say if you interpret it as her being driven to this, like driven to this point by the things that have happened, assuming the events that have taken place are the result of the witch's magic or Black Phillip's influence, was the intention to drive her into being a witch?
Well, all along, so everything that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because further notes on the activity of witches come from the Malleus Maleficarum, first written in 1428. Roughly it translates as the witch's hammer, or the hammer of witches. And it's a handbook written on what to do when you've got a witch on your hands, basically. And they say there's 3 ways in which evil spirits use witches to overthrow the innocent. And one of them is through depression arising through detrimental loss, such as children, siblings, parents, a farm, life as you know it, your home, and a silver cup, for instance.
So if it's loss of home, how far does this go back? Could it be that they left England as the result of a witch?
Yeah. I mean, home isn't necessarily given in the text. That was one of my examples.
Right.
But of course, that is a detrimental loss. Apparently, the Malleus Maleficarum also has a guide on what to do if a witch removes your penis. Yeah.
Right.
But it basically summarises it as the loss of a penis is merely an illusion, and one should come to a friendly arrangement with the witch. But they apparently spend 4 pages describing how the witches take the penis in the first place. So I don't know how much the Malleus Maleficarum holds up to modern scientific scrutiny, but worth bearing in mind, perhaps.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what do we know, Joe? We often like talking about what we know.
So I think we're going to have to make an agreement here about whether or not we're going to take the witches in the film as fact or fiction.
Well, it's based on folklore.
Yes.
From the 1500s.
Sure.
Right, so throughout this time, it was increasingly believed that Christianity was engaged in an apocalyptic battle against the devil and his secret army of witches who had entered into a diabolical pact.
It started with white magic, which was, hanging a charm to get your crops to grow better, and that developed that there must be a black magic, which is what we see in the film.
Yeah, exactly. And, this was like a genuine paranoia of the era. And Robert Eggers, the director, and Anya Taylor-Joy, there's an interview with them in which they talk about the research they did into witches while making the film. And obviously it's hard to imagine from a modern perspective. And one modern way of reading the whole witch hunt thing is to imagine it as like an anti-woman thing.
Right.
So, like, it's a way of getting rid of outspoken women.
Yeah, yeah. Because generally, 90% of witches, I'm sure, were women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it's a paranoid investigation into a group.
Yeah.
Which is obviously why nowadays you have the phrase witch hunt.
Yeah, the communism or anything where you want to get a small minority to bend to the will of the masses, right?
Yeah, but there is like a sort of anti-feminist undertone to it.
Yes,
like the actions of the witch hunt.
Because the stories you hear, if you look at the horror stories of the witch trials, are generally of women who behaved in a non-standard way, so that they'd live with another woman, or they'd till the farm themselves or something.
Yeah, it's like a primal fear of powerful women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And basically, to be accused of being a witch was a death sentence.
Yeah. Because
there's no real way to prove that you weren't a witch.
No.
Other than dying.
Right.
Because Salem witch hunts, obviously, I'm sure we've all heard of the methods by which they would test whether someone was a witch.
Yeah.
Like dunking, crushing, burning at the stake. So, like, if you survived being burned at the stake, you'd be executed because you were a witch. Yeah. And obviously, basically, no one did survive that.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly, in Salem, no one was ever burned at the stake. They were all hangings.
Really? Well, Salem witch hunts were between 1692 and 93.
60 years after this film was set.
Yeah, so they had 22 people executed in the space of about 5 months for being witches. And over 150 imprisoned at various points or accused of being witches.
Yeah.
So if you confessed, you'd be executed, and if you didn't confess or refused to enter a plea, you'd be tortured to death anyway.
Right.
So it's not a good situation to be in.
No, exactly.
So, but if we assume, as in the film, that the witches are a real thing, because later on I want to talk about whether or not we can definitely. Whether it's because there are dreamlike elements to a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, and it could be that when Caleb goes into the woods looking for his sister, it could be that he just hallucinates.
Yeah. But if we assume that witches, and again this is based on like folklore at the time, so their beliefs were that witches' powers were like you said, causing depression, but it would be malicious magic users can become a credible cause for disease, sickness in animals, bad luck, sudden death, impotence, and other such misfortunes.
Right.
And obviously we also see them fly.
Yes.
At the end.
Yeah.
Satan, or Black Phillip, his powers are appearing as a goat.
Yeah.
In the form of a goat and murdering William
Yes.
Presumably instructing the witches, as you were saying, or
getting them to bend to his will.
Yeah, in order to get his power.
Mm-hmm.
And it's implied, or stated but never confirmed, that he's talking to the twins as well.
Yeah.
Maybe influencing their behaviour, because they're like running wild, aren't they?
Yeah, they do what they want. Yeah, but they also we don't know what happens to them, so they could be living happily ever after.
I doubt it. But could it be that the monster in the film is actually the collective paranoia or madness of the?
Well, that's
because the Salem witch hunts are now looked back on in modern times as the one of the best examples of collective mass hysteria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was making. In a way, that is more scary than there was a witch all along.
Yeah,
to say that this is things people actually thought and people actually did this. If you watch The Crucible, that's a fairly, I don't know how accurate, but it's a fairly authentic representation of life when you've been accused of being a witch.
Yes.
However, this leans too heavily on the fact that there are witches actually in real life. So I think if you watch something like The Crucible, which has witchcraft and accusations of being a witch as its main theme, that feels like a scarier sort of thing than
actual witches.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously the film is scary.
Yeah,
but it's a film, and witches aren't real. But then the accusations of being a witch and killing people, it still happens today in many places. In places like Africa, they do still kill people for being a witch, which is terrifying.
Yeah,
and that is scarier than if babies are being stolen by demonic forces.
Well, because I actually think that there is more ambiguity to the film than it first appears. Because I can't remember completely, but I think every appearance of the witch or witches are either preceded by or followed by people going to sleep or waking up. So the first time you see the witch is where she kidnaps Samuel.
Yeah.
And then the next scene is Thomasin waking up the next day, days later. I think it's a week later, maybe. And her mother is crying.
Yeah.
Or Caleb maybe is the one who wakes up first.
He climbs over Thomasin and wakes her up. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then Caleb, we see the hand. But again, there's an element of ambiguity to that.
Because he climbs into a tree first.
Yes, he's climbing through branches.
Yeah. And then suddenly he's walking.
Yeah.
So
then the appearance of the witch in the barn happens during the night, and then the next scene that the scene from which we learn the result of that is
she's asleep.
She wakes up in the entrance of the barn sort of thing, on her own. And then the final scene with all the witches and Black Phillip and everything is after Thomasin's gone to sleep, having just killed her mother. She sort of puts her head down on the table in the house.
Yeah.
So I think, and also given the dream-like presentation of all of the scenes in which they appear, basically, or nightmarish, obviously as well. Like the use of imagery and things.
Sure.
I think there is potentially more ambiguity than it first appears.
Well, I'll take that. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, did you mention the breastfeeding scene as well?
Yeah. Well, the rave. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that happens during the night.
So it's all during the night, which you'd imagine is when a witch would strike. But it also, there's a reason we say things that go bump in the night is when we're more paranoid and probably dreaming as well. Yeah.
Well, although it has to be said that Catherine's wound from the raven pecking at her does appear real. In reality.
Yeah, and equally, Caleb does cough up an apple.
Yeah. But I think it is given that it's based on folklore and no character witnesses things like Samuel being killed. The scenes that show that could be interpreted as what people at the era imagined.
So it's your worst nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think on balance, as you said, it comes down closer to the side of witches are real than it does the other way.
Especially since the Satanist organisation have claimed as much.
Yeah. But I think there is enough of the paranoia and madness elements in the film to give it that level of ambiguity.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So the question is, how are we going to approach it when we're considering how to survive?
Well, let's come to that now. It's that time of the show, as always, how to survive. My first idea of how to survive is based around character of William.
Yes.
And William, the father, is basically shown to be bad or incapable at everything he does. Like, other than building a home and chopping wood,
Yes.
it seems like he can't farm successfully. Like, whether this is the work of the witch, it could well be, because as we know, they were, caused misfortune.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be able to farm, hunt, care for his children, secure barns when he wants people locked in and no one to get in or out, maintaining spatial awareness when potentially sharing a farm with the physical embodiment of Satan.
Yes, exactly.
Which is an important thing, I think, and it's what results in his death.
Yes.
But it stands to reason, by this logic, that he could be, by 1600s puritanical Christian standards, a bad Christian too. Bad at being a Christian, and therefore more susceptible to sin, temptation, and Satan.
On what basis?
Because Satan is obviously the Antichrist.
Yes.
And he says himself that we are all children of sin.
Yeah.
And to avoid being corrupted by Satan, they need to live pure Christian lives, which is why they're puritanical Christians.
Yes.
What came we into this wilderness to find?
Yeah.
It was a pure Christian way of life.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So, given that they seemingly are eventually corrupted by Satan, and he says, corruption, thou art my father, right? If he was a better Christian, they might have survived. Is my what I pose to you.
I mean, farming and tilling the land isn't a sign of a good Christian. But
no, it's not. But it's a sign of his being bad at things generally.
Okay, but so, I'd take it a step further though, because he isn't necessarily a good Christian, because he lies to his wife. He lies to his children.
Yeah. He's too proud.
Yeah,
he says it himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
So given all this evidence, despite the fact that he is so supposedly so puritanical that he gets kicked out by other puritanical Christians.
Yeah.
That if he was better at being a Christian, they wouldn't have been so susceptible as a family to the influence of Satan.
So I agree. So what would you advise him to do? What's your remedy?
Be a better Christian.
Yeah. So like, pray more.
Yeah. Don't lie. Don't lie. Don't be susceptible to pride.
Yeah.
And pray more. Live a more wholesome life.
Whenever he says turn your attention to God and don't worry about your own grief, he should do that himself.
Exactly.
Because he never seems to bat an eyelid when his children die.
No. Well, exactly.
Yeah, he's just like vexed. But
well, it's because I think it's because he's realizing that he can't do anything.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, Thomason even says as much.
Yeah, exactly.
When he accuses her of being a witch and causing all these problems, she says, "Well, haven't you once considered that it's all your incapable fault of doing anything except cutting wood?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on a more logical note, on the same point, he himself states that he has suffered the sins of a proud man.
Yeah.
Right. He's succumbed to pride.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't sooner ask for help from their community.
Right.
So not being so proud, this ties into it, but in a more grounded, I suppose, atheistical way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So not being proud would have benefited them in two ways, right? So firstly, he'd be more ready to return to the homestead for aid, or potentially would never have left.
Yeah.
And secondly, he would more readily admit his inability to provide and care for his family and his need for the help of a community.
Right.
Potentially aiding their survival, Joe.
I'd say I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd take the point about pride.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd take that a step further and say, here's my first tip on survival.
Okay.
When it comes to beliefs about anything, be a little less dogmatic.
Okay.
Right? So break or bend. That's what they say, right? The strongest trees in the forest are the ones that bend but don't break in strong winds.
Okay.
He seems incapable of doing that. He seems to be unable to bend to the point of being fragile, brittle.
Well, I would argue that my tips for his survival don't clash with his character motivations,
right?
Which, according to the podcast rules, Joe,
true.
we can't change the character's motivations in order to help them survive.
Right. So his primary motivation is to serve God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so by serving God, he could have potentially survived if this is your interpretation of it.
I believe when he says "corruption, thou art my father," that is a quote from Job, who at the point of his death, he's lost everything. Yes. And he says, corruption thou art my father, which is maybe a translation from Hebrew, from like the grave is my father. And basically he's saying, despite everything, I am now no better than earth.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone around me who's wished me to return to wealth, and me for thinking that as well, idiots, because I am dirt. Right?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Right.
If he wasn't saying that, if he said, well, actually, if I was a little bit better at farming, if I kept the praying to maybe 3 times a day instead of 5,
right,
and spent the rest of the spare time serving God in other ways, actually providing. God's given us stewardship on earth, so I should do the best I can to make it a habitable place for my family and the animals, right? Or when he's in the town, they're obviously Puritan.
Yeah, love thy neighbour.
Love thy neighbour, right? Yeah. There are ways of interpreting the Bible which say that you can live a harmonious life with the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to impose your doctrine.
Exactly.
On others.
Yeah. Which is theoretically shared with the people around, because it's not like he's come up with his own way of living.
No, it's not like he's the forefather of a new branch of Christianity.
No, exactly. So yeah, I mean, essentially, love thy neighbour. Don't steal, don't kill, don't be too proud, don't be greedy. I mean, the 10 Commandments, they are shared by every human society that's ever lived.
Yeah,
they're not unique to Christianity.
No,
but nonetheless, they are in the Christian Bible.
Yeah,
they do exist there. So he's available to him. Just change your interpretation slightly to be a little more
liberal,
beneficial to your self-survival, because then you'll be better able to serve God in this life as well as the next.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think that, yes. I think, as I said, it might be stretching his motivations slightly.
Because at the moment, he's like, I have to not really worry about the things around me, because I just need to focus on God.
Because he doesn't, even at the moments before his death, he's not had a crisis of faith in the sense that he's renouncing God.
No, he's just realising his mistakes, basically. Yeah.
Catherine, however, does sort of renounce God, or admits that when Samuel was taken from her,
she had a crisis of faith. Yeah. So it's either, I don't know, it's just to be a bit more lax with your religious values.
Yeah.
Because I've never known in my life or in any of history dogmatic religious belief to be of the benefit to most people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a stretch.
No. If you have heard of that, however, then do get in touch at HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com.
I've got another How to Survive idea, and this is for Caleb.
Okay.
And this is assuming, I mean, it doesn't, he coughs up that apple, right?
Yeah.
Chew your food.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Because there's only one way that apple is getting in there.
Yeah.
Even if a witch put it in there. I mean, theoretically, the witch could have, I don't know, what's the word? Like
transported
through time and space into his gullet.
Well, I assume that is what happens. I don't think it's implied that while the family are looking, he tries to eat an entire apple.
There's one bite missing as well.
Yeah.
So it suggests that he bit and then just like was overcome with the deliciousness of the apple. But
the apple obviously has religious symbolism as well.
No, Chris.
No?
He just ate the apple too fast and got it lodged.
The apple with one bite missing.
Yeah.
Is presumably, it's a religious reference.
Forbidden fruit.
Yeah. Which Caleb has presumably by kissing the witch or the woman that he sees before him. He's succumbed to temptation.
Yes, exactly.
So, is it that the witches are actually punishing lax Christian values?
So they are in fact they are doing God's work. Okay, maybe. And if you stray from the straight and narrow path of the righteous and kiss a stranger in the forest, you're punished by something that is metaphorically representative of that action.
But if we return to my previous idea of survival, that they could have survived by being better Christians, is it not the case that the witches are, in a sense, punishing lax Christianity?
I assume that's only because that allows any deviation from.
So it allows them in.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly,
it opens the door.
Yeah.
The door is ajar for the witches to enter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's interesting. Well, on the subject of witches, my final method of survival would be to avoid being accused of being a witch.
Sure.
Because obviously accusations of witchcraft were common of the era, and I thought it would be good for the listeners to avoid being accused of being a witch.
Yes,
to
in
know
1630 New England.
Exactly. Yeah. To know what some of the characteristics, common accusations, reasons for accusing people of being a witch were. So the first is a person being caught in the act of positive or negative sorcery.
Right.
So don't
be sorcerous.
Don't be sorceress.
Yeah.
Don't put any spells on people.
Yeah.
Don't be shown
Don't
waving
use
a wand.
charms. Yeah.
But equally, a well-meaning sorcerer or healer who lost their clients' or the authorities' trust. So if you are a well-meaning sorcerer or healer, I mean, obviously that's covered by the first thing. Don't be a sorcerer.
Don't do it in the first place. But if you do it,
don't lose their trust.
Okay.
Because if you do, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't be a person who did nothing more than gain the enmity of their neighbours.
Right.
So don't piss anyone off, basically.
No. Keep your head down.
Yeah, because your neighbours could accuse you of being a witch in order to get rid of you. Or don't be a person who is reputed to be a witch and surrounded with an aura of witch beliefs or occultism.
Okay. So describe the aura.
Well, I'd imagine having an aura, if one had an aura of witchcraft
and occultism,
it would be, wearing a witch's hat.
Yeah.
Like
carrying a broom everywhere.
Leaning over a cauldron.
Yeah.
And collecting things from woodland to put in there.
Having a black cat.
Yeah, don't do any of the tropes of witchcraft. Try and avoid them.
Yeah.
But there are different types of witch as well, Joe. So the first is the neighbourhood witch or social witch.
Right.
A witch who curses a neighbour following some conflict.
Right. So that's kind of like you've
mown my lawn.
Yeah.
Or you've strayed onto my boundary.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn your nose into a frog's head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you had an argument with a neighbour and then something bad happened to you, you could go, that's
witchcraft.
Exactly. Yeah. Then there was the magical or sorcerer witch.
Right.
Either a professional healer, sorcerer, seer, or midwife.
Right.
I don't know why
midwives done,
or a person who has through magic increased her fortune to the perceived detriment of a neighbouring household due to neighbourly or community rivalries and the ambiguity between positive and negative magic. Such individuals can be labelled as witches.
So my next door neighbour gets a new car.
Yeah.
I don't really think she's necessarily earned it.
Yeah.
Must be a witch.
Yeah, or like you there's a transaction on your bank account that you don't recognise, and then they've also bought a new car.
Right, yeah.
Like, seems suspicious. Like there's a transaction going to a Ford dealership.
Yeah.
And they turn up in a shining new Ford Focus.
Yeah.
That could be they could be a witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or equally, if I don't know, if you're a midwife.
Yeah. Delivering babies very well.
I think basically the midwife thing comes from, obviously, back in the day.
Yeah.
There's a very high death in childbirth rate.
Right. Yeah.
And so midwives would often be blamed for the death of the child.
If it goes wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was accused of witchcraft.
Are you sure it's not that midwife has semantically shifted? That maybe a midwife
potential.
Maybe a midwife in the 1600s.
I'm trying to ground it in terms that the listener can use in a practical sense.
Okay, so
any
this
midwives
does mean an NHS midwife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or Obamacare midwife.
Yeah,
depending on wherever you are in the world.
Okay.
So if you're a midwife, just don't
do your job thoroughly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then there's the supernatural or night witch. Often portrayed in court narratives as a demon appearing in visions and dreams.
Right.
So if don't do so. Obviously, dreams are often the that I don't know if you find this, but certainly I do. Dreams appear to be based roughly on what's happened to you during the day or recently.
It's sort of snatches of memory.
Yeah, exactly. So don't do anything at any point that could lead any person who's near you
to remember you.
Yeah. So be forgettable in every way.
Yeah. Even by their subconscious.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously, if you are forgettable, then that's perfect cover for being a witch, because no one's going to know.
All these witches seem to live alone in the woods anyway. So they seem to be sort of abiding by most of these. We can't guarantee they're not being sorcerous.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we're not trying to accuse... We're not trying to help witches here.
No.
We're trying to help people avoid being accused of being a witch. Right. And so don't live in a shack in the woods.
Yeah,
if you live in a shack in the woods, move to a populous area, but don't annoy any of your neighbours, because it could be that they think you're a witch.
Well, how about this? I mean, fair enough, you've given us advice on ways people have been accused of being a witch.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really prevent it, because I can just say right now, Chris, I think you are a witch.
Right.
You can't stop me doing that.
I can't, but
I mean, you could cut out my tongue.
in the modern day, you'd need empirical evidence.
That's true. That is true. But I mean, but this applies to 1630s.
Right.
So if we were in the 1630s, we're sat in our local podcasting studio,
sure,
which exists, and I say, look, I think you're a witch, and I say to the local good wife, I say, hey, hello, good wife, I think my comrade, my partner in business, Chris, is a witch. She says, well, this is a stirring case indeed. She goes to the local sheriff, I guess, or the dean, the the person in charge of things at the town.
Yeah.
And she says she thinks Chris is a witch. I've heard rumours Chris is a witch. She then goes to people in the butcher.
Yeah.
People at the...
So the community turns on
the community begins to rumour.
Yeah.
Obviously the dean's sort of thinking, is this a witch? Is this a witch? Before long, you're actually formally accused by the community.
Yeah.
They crush you under a rock, and that's
dead.
The end of that. Yeah.
So do you have a suggestion on how to avoid that?
I don't know. Be pleasant. Because in all these portrayals, it's always people who are just like, get people's backs up.
Yeah, well, that's basically the same as, don't be accused of being a witch. That's same. I think we're in agreement.
Don't get people's backs up.
Yeah.
So if you have a big horned goat on the farm, cut off its horns.
Okay.
It doesn't need them. I mean, if you got it on, if it needed it in the wild, fine. But it's on a farm, so just saw them off.
So he's there to give them to father.
I assume it is a stud. Yeah.
I mean, goat is a common meat that's eaten around the world.
Yeah.
If you're starving, and to the point where it's getting, you might have to leave your home and return to a homestead.
Yeah.
Why not, have some delicious goat burgers?
Yeah, that's true. I suppose it would spoil quite quickly.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's giving them anything else, because he's...
Yeah, but like...
You can't milk him.
Yeah, but if you... Like, obviously he's there for a long-term,
investment.
Yeah, but that investment is going to...
Well, kill one of the girl goats.
Yeah.
You got goats there.
But then that doesn't help you survive in the sense that...
Well, cut off Black Phillip's horn so he can't gore you.
And then kill the female goat.
Yeah.
But the female goats can still give you milk.
Well, keep one.
Okay. Keep one goat.
I don't know.
But they're not milking anyway.
Yeah. They're bleeding.
Blood.
Yeah, that's true.
That's tricky.
On the same vein, farming advice. Obviously, the corn is rotting. It's called corn rot or corn ear rot.
Okay.
You don't want that, obviously.
No.
So next season, go into town, swallow your pride, and say, "Look, I need some hybrid corn.
Okay.
That's been bred with corn that is ear rot resistant."
Okay.
Because clumsy me, in my haste to get out of here, I fucking forgot about to get this hybrid corn.
Sure.
So they'll sell you some. You trade it for Black Phillip, whatever. Get that off your hands as well.
Yeah. 2 birds.
And above all, avoid planting corn on corn.
Okay.
Because if the soil's already got corn rot,
rotten corn.
yeah, it's going to grow more corn rot.
Okay.
And you want to avoid that. So maybe plant some onions or broccoli.
Okay.
And move the corn farm around the back of the house. Yeah. Yeah. That's my farming advice.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
Good agricultural knowledge.
Yeah, because that's going to ensure your survival for many years to come as well. One last point is don't lie. Seems to be the undoing of everyone.
Yeah.
Keep lying to each other. Good channels of communication form the basis of all good sort of familial relationships.
Yeah.
Tell them how you're feeling. So if you come into town and say, look, we really need food, there's an Indian out there who's willing to trade.
Yeah.
You know that silver cup you've got? That's not really doing much. I know you like it, but we could probably trade that for a trap, maybe some food, which would ensure our survival. But she even says we could have sold that for food, which is essentially endorsing it.
Yeah.
And all this havoc would have been avoided had she just said, okay, fine.
Yeah, I agree. Well, like, if Caleb doesn't lie about the apple tree, he doesn't then choke ironically on an apple.
No, exactly.
You would presume.
And even lying by omission, by not expressing your feelings.
Don't lie and say that you're a witch, as Thomasin at one point does either.
To
because
her sister,
that ties into previous survival tips about not being accused of a witch.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be accused of a witch, don't
Yeah.
claim to be a witch falsely or potentially truthfully.
Yeah. And in fact, the only person that does survive, though, is Thomasin. By agreeing to be a witch.
So is the ultimate method of survival become a witch?
Become a witch as soon as possible, yeah.
We see no ill effects.
No. Maybe on her soul, but we don't know what are the consequences of signing the book.
Yeah.
Other than you get to dance around naked, which, sounds quite fun. And fly. Flying sounds good fun.
Butter and pretty dress.
And flying.
Yeah.
A delicious life, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have actually had one email in from Callum.
Hello, Callum.
Hello, indeed. He says, my advice for William is that excessive chopping of firewood will lead to structurally unsound piles and could cause a hazard to yourself and others. Chop less, pick more apples.
Why does he need that much wood?
Because that's literally all he can do. He's just so shit. He just all day spends chopping wood.
He's rubbish at anything else.
And there's a massive pile of wood.
Yeah. Well, it ends up his undoing in part.
Because he gets head-butted into it and it collapses and
crushes him
to death. Yeah. Another email comes from Tash.
Hello.
Her advice is for William as well. It's when it comes to buying livestock, any Puritan family should know to avoid black goats and other animal companions of Satan.
Yeah, like why would you...
But even in the film, they acknowledge that the devil will come in the form of a black goat, or a patron demon of Satan will...
You're opening yourself up to it, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. You're inviting it. And when it starts running riot, and when the children start communing with that goat, and obviously having conversations about the devil...
They're not quick enough to
react, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't lock the other suspected witches in a barn with it.
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah, exactly.
So all the people you suspect of being a witch, including a goat, don't put them in one place. It's not going to end well.
And so it proves. And one final email comes from Gemma, who says, I really enjoyed it. It kept an excellent level of tension throughout, and the kids all carried off the ye olde script quite convincingly. I hated the two twin children. My How to Survive would involve them dying much quicker. I feel this would help in some way, though I can't quite put my finger on why. I had thought survival may have been easier had they all got the hell out of there sooner, but then they'd have taken the goat, so maybe not. 100 acting points for said goat. Black Phillip, what a guy. Although I had a minor heart attack when he spoke. I think we agree with that. Joe.
Well, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
That has been The Witch. A great film. And one I'm looking forward to seeing again soon.
Yeah. So if you'd like to get in touch, if you've got any thoughts on The Witch or Mad Max, which is the next film we're covering, Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, not the original Mel Gibson one.
Yeah, or the film after that, The Survivalist, which we mentioned earlier. Then the email address, as ever, is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. And we're also on Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter.com/howtosurvivepod.
Yeah, we are at howtosurvivepod.
Yeah. So if you use Twitter, you can make sure you give us a follow, and you can get in touch on there. Maybe it's quicker and easier for you if you're always on Twitter.
Yeah.
Just give us a little message. Say, tell us what you think. And obviously, if you want to tell us what you think properly, then you can leave us a review on iTunes. Tell us what you think and why you're giving us 5 stars.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they email and they say, Joe, I can't work out how to leave this review. So I'll break it down for you. You open the podcast app, you search for How to Survive in the search function. Yep. Find ours. It's the black you're listening now, so it's the black and white logo. Go on there, click on write a review. You click 5 stars. Leave any message you want. It doesn't really matter. But we like to know what you think. And that's basically it. So yeah, thank you very much for that in advance.
Yeah, Joe there guiding your hand. So next week it's Mad Max Fury Road, and in the meantime, be sure to live deliciously.